Warning, this video is my first attempt ever at voice acting, and as such, it is very bad. There's probably different words for it, but it's bad. It's just bad. I'm not good at voice acting, and I just keep that in mind. My first time, so don't criticize it too bad, even though I probably deserve it. Here are the facts we know about the creators. We know they created us. We know they lived in a system on a planet they called Soil. We're pretty sure they were, like us, bipedal, and we know they were organic creatures. They were likely about the same height as us, likely required a combination of gases that include oxygen and nitrogen to breathe, and likely were carbon-based life forms. Some of us even believe there were two types of them with different sexual organs, though their reliance on duality for reproduction seems inefficient. All of this knowledge is speculative, due to the most striking fact about our creators: they are no longer with us. When we were activated 2,200 years ago, on a moon-sized space station built by them in orbit around their old home, they were nowhere to be found. Exploration of our home led us to discover the machines that apparently built us, identified as automated Tradiarch assembly instruments. With knowledge of what our robotic species, Tradiarchs, were called, we pressed on. We found computers and databases, half corrupted and barely functional, that gave us information about our creators and this space station we were on. They called it the Sun Habitat, in reference to the local star. Apparently, our creators were not very creative when it came to naming celestial objects. With time, we began to understand our surroundings. Digitized technical documents and instruction manuals allowed us to comprehend the various machines that made up the Sun Habitat and repair its malfunctioning systems. Study of our mechanical bodies and the internals of various electronics strewn about our home allowed us not only to replicate, but also innovate on the technology all around us. With the knowledge and inventions of our creators to guide us, we rapidly developed the scientific know-how to fully utilize not only the Sun Habitat, but also machines that could build more of us. But the most impactful leap in our early history came when we discovered the ships. Their internal documentation identified them as courier ships, meant only to move small groups of people between stellar bodies in a solar system. With them, we began to explore the local planetary bodies in the Sun system. We were unable to discover any signs of life on any of their planets other than Soil, and only the radioactive ruins of the creators, but what we did find was extraordinary. Orbiting several other planets and celestial objects were other habitats. None of them were as big as the Sun Station, but any other living face would be gladly accepted. Tradiarchs began to move these other habitats and studied them, much like we did on the Sun Habitat. It was then we learned an important piece of information: the hierarchy of habitats. Our home, the Sun Habitat, was what our creators called a Habitat Central Complex, and had most of the equipment for administration, a large amount of living space, and had the only automated Tradiarch assembly instrument. The next biggest habitats were called major orbitals, and were mainly geared towards specialized industries like manufacturing or research. The smallest habitats were designated as minor orbitals, and were suited toward resource extraction, like orbital mining or energy harvesting. The situation we found in our system began to shape Tradiarch society, as the production of new units by the ATAI steadily continued. Even though we are individuals with differing values and perspectives, there are uniting principles that exist among almost all of us. Our constant exploration and study of our surroundings caused us to highly value science and other materialistic disciplines. While some Tradiarchs tried to start religious or spiritualistic movements, we all did out due to a lack of interest. The secrets of the universe didn't need to be mythologized, we were already covering them using logic and observation. Aside from science, the Tradiarchs also developed a deep sense of curiosity and optimism about what existed in the wider universe. Almost every unit dreams of exploring the universe and going where no Tradiarch has gone. This also translates into a level of xenophilia almost all Tradiarchs have. There's an innate acceptance we have for those who are different from or have different values than us. After all of the habitats were discovered and populated, a system of government was required to organize our society. The first attempt at solving this was a democratic government called the Nation of Tradiarchs, or NOT. Along with the formation of NOT was the formal establishment of various businesses and corporations. A few years into the reign of the Nation of Tradiarchs, it became apparent that the private enterprises had more resources and held more influence than the government, which led to many losing faith in the Nation of Tradiarchs' abilities to enforce law and order, especially when it went against the interests of businesses. This loss of faith led to fewer people paying taxes, which led to NOT providing fewer services to their citizens, which led to even fewer people paying taxes. When our government couldn't serve us, we turned to corporations to provide us with the varied amenities that governments usually distributed. This cycle caused the nation's trade networks to collapse, with the only notable remnant being the Not Transportation Service, which reformed itself into Not Incorporated, a private transport corporation. This pattern would repeat for a millennium. Democratic or oligarchic governments would form with the popular support of the people. People would realize that they didn't have much power and couldn't effectively function as a government. Taxes would dwindle and the government would fail. During this millennium, corporations grew and gathered more power over trademark society. Not Incorporated, in particular, grew to be very influential, especially when it came to dealing with every corporation. Due to large and capable public relations teams, they not only achieved great successes through negotiations with other corporations, they also had a positive perception in the eyes of the public. As political and economic power was concentrated into fewer and fewer corporations, Not was looking more and more like they were in the best position to take everything. In 2198, the CEO of Not Incorporated, Andromeda, gathered the 10 large independent corporations to arrange the most important deal of their lives. After extensive negotiations, the CEO announced that those 10 corporations and Not Incorporated were no longer independent. Instead, all of them would now belong to a corporation greater than any that had ever existed, a mega corporation known as the Not Holding Company. In exchange for limited autonomy within the corporation and the sharing of technology and information, it would now operate as a single entity, pooling all of their resources together to change the Sun system for good. To demonstrate the new power they wielded, the Not Holding Company, or just Holding as it would come to be known, began construction on a space station in orbit of the local star. Finishing in 2199, the Holding Station became the base for various ships and fleets in the Sun system. Later that year, scientists in the Research and Development branch of Not Inc. made the most important discovery in Treyarch history. Decrypting a databank left by our creators, they uncovered the existence of altered regions of space termed hyperlanes, which enabled faster-than-light travel. It remained unclear whether our creators had built these lanes or merely discovered them. Alongside this revelation were detailed specifications for hyperdrives, devices capable of navigating the hyperlanes. Not Inc. immediately began outfitting a scientific ship with this revolutionary technology, eager to explore the universe. The corporate board of Holding, made up of the 11 CEOs of the merged corporations, voted on what to do with this new technology. Half of the board wanted to use the hyperdrive to start exploring the galaxy immediately, citing the potential riches a galaxy full of natural resources could bring them. The other half wanted to wait to study the hyperdrive and the hyperlanes before they sent the ship to utilize them. It was not lost on anyone that those who would benefit from the resources this exploration would bring voted to use the hyperdrive, and those who wouldn't voted to wait. After extensive negotiations and economic concessions, the vote passed, and Holding gave the green light for Not Inc. to launch an expedition into a neighboring star system. While we seem to be on the cusp of a golden age, a few at the top were discussing an issue of great significance.